Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Scarbo here, speaking to you, of course, from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. You probably recognize my office. So I want to wrap up the month of September as far as the astrology for the week, and that runs from the 26th, which is tomorrow's Sunday, and to the 30th, which is Thursday. And there are a couple of things happening at the end of the month. I know you're like, hasn't enough happened? Perhaps. But the stars continue to move through the sky and they continue to interact with one another. And so let's take a look. This is going to be a relatively, I think a relatively short video. I always think that, and then for some reason I can't stop talking. So let's take a look at what's going on over this next week. Now, of course, this week we do have Mercury going retrograde, so we will look at that. But let me start this where I need to start it. Yep, here we go. All right, sorry about the technical issues here. Slideshow from this slide. Okay, so now you can actually read it. It's big enough. So we start this week with Sunday, the 26th of September, which incidentally vibrates to a 40/4 for those of you who like to do the numerology. That would be the Page of Cups, the Page of Cups. So on Sunday, we have the moon in Gemini, and we actually have a trine between the sun and the moon. This is the trine of social rewards. This is the Sagittarius side trine, known as the disseminating phase in the cycles between the sun and the moon, or any two planets that you're looking at. So disseminating means to spread or to share. And what we're sharing is we're sharing our knowledge, we're sharing our understanding. This is a Sag side trine. And of course, Sagittarius is the sign most associated with wisdom and learning through experience, coming up with morals and ethics that work. Now, of course, we're talking about a short-term cycle here when you talk about the sun and the moon, but we have to remember that the beginning of this cycle began with that very powerful new moon in Virgo. Remember, we had 3 grand trines and an inconjunct that told us don't work too hard, even though all the other trines said this is an absolutely wonderful time to start things or to do things or to get things done. So that was the initial conjunction of this lunation cycle. And so this Sunday, we see some rewards for the work that we have done. And if you've overworked, you might see the rewards of that. So if you have overworked and you're seeing the rewards of that, please rest. Okay. Monday, the 27th, which is a 41.5 vibration, the Ace of Cups, for those of you who want to know, we have Mercury stationing retrograde at 26 degrees of Libra. Now, Mercury is the planet of communication. It is how we take in information. Generally, Libra, we take in information through interacting with on a one-to-one basis, relationships. Could be a relationship with a sibling or a spouse or a friend or a teacher, any kind of, we're in a relationship to everything, excuse me. But this is more like relationship to people, as it were. And so with Mercury retrograde in Libra, Libra being a partnership, give and take, dialogue, it's an energy of dialogue. As it's retrograde, the chances of us misinterpreting or mishearing is greater. So one of the things that you can do with this energy is, I don't know what it's called. It might be called active listening, but it's this thing that we did, my husband and I did in therapy a couple of years ago. It's you would say something, and then the other person would say, "What I heard you say was," and so when you do that, you may be saying something to somebody, and you listen to no wait, they say something to you and you listen to what they say, and then you give them feedback and say, this is what I heard you say, because a lot of times we'll say something to somebody, they hear something or something else, because everybody has their viewpoint, right? Everybody has their the lens from which they and their own Mercury, right? Taking in information. You know, Mercury in Libra takes in information differently than a Mercury in Aries, or a Mercury in Cancer, or a Mercury in Capricorn, or Mercury in any of the signs. So we all have our own ways of doing it. And this is a good way to just make sure that you heard. Now, most of us don't have the kind of time to just do that with everything, but when you're talking about important stuff, it's useful to use that. So what I hear you saying, and then they respond and say, no, that's not what I said. This is what I said. So it takes a little bit more time, but I think it's something that's going to be very hopeful, especially with Mercury in Libra. Now, the Sabian symbol for 26 degrees of Libra is an eagle and a large white dove change into each other. The interaction of the spiritual will and of the love principle when critical needs arise. Let me see if I can, hold on one second. I'm going to see if I can find my Sabian symbol book, and I'll read the explanation to this, because I think it's probably, this is a little obscure. So I want to make sure that you hear what Dane Rudger has to say about this. It says, this sequence of symbols concluding the Libra phase of the cycle deals with problems met by the seeker for the fulfillment of a higher life of relationship. Implied here is a kind of yang-yin interplay. When the circle encompassing both principles rotates fast, they appear to change into each other. Consciousness operates beyond duality because the polarized energies of the soul or spirit, will and love, through ever distinct work for a single purpose. It says here, this represents a new higher approach to the use of polarized forces within the personality, which has been ever so little transformed and operating within a new framework. The key word adeptness fits this phase, but there are many levels of adeptship. So really, this speaks of, to a certain extent, it speaks to the idea that we live in a dual existence, and there will always be duality. But holding the space for duality while aspiring to higher frequencies is, in a way, if any of you haven't, I did a high tea with Denise, and we actually talk about this in that video. It is an hour long, so I understand if you don't have the time, but we do talk about that. We talk about being aware of the two sides of an issue, but still being able to sort of rise above, walk through it, and allow things to, you know, walking through the doorway that is created by this, so that we can ascend to a higher level. Once you get to a higher level of expression, or a finer vibration, you can look and see the construct that you moved through with greater understanding, right? So this is the symbol that we get when Mercury starts to go retrograde. And Mercury is going to be retrograde for about 21 days. And it goes direct on October 18th at 11 degrees of Libra. The saving symbol for 11 degrees of Libra is a professor peering over his glasses at his students, problems attending the transmission of knowledge in a special cultural setup. Let me see what he says about this as well, because these are just so good. I hate to not read it to you. It says, this is a rather peculiar symbol for this place in the process, and it reveals a rather humorous approach to what man's mind can accomplish. There seems to be no valid reason to make the image into some kind of caricature or to sentimentalize it by referring to the kind old professor. Rather, one should analyze the picture in order to discover its basic elements. The professor has dealt so much with books that he has greatly strained his eyes. In the days when bifocal lenses were not widely used, he has to peer over his glasses in order to see his students. The symbol thus simply reveals two aspects of the condition of professorship. That is, one of being able to transfer to the young generation a vast sum of knowledge accumulated by the past. The need to absorb the enormous amount of book knowledge affects the mind as well as the eyes. In order to meet the demands of the turbulent youth, the teacher, in a sense, has to look above his knowledge and see his students simply as human beings. And it says, at an intellectual level, with the teaching of accumulated collected knowledge and the problem posed by acquisition of that knowledge, this is what instruction means, a process not to be confused with education. Instruction. So, this can mean perhaps, and we'll know better once we go through the Mercury retrograde cycle, that, we have, everything is moving so fast and, I think moving so quickly that sometimes the past wisdom is overlooked or jumped over. And while I think we're in a time when much of the old structures need to be released, the wisdom that we learn through that, I mean, we wouldn't have to release structures if they were still useful. And so we learn something through that as well. And this almost feels a little like not to throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. But we will see as we go. And here we have Mercury going stationary. It's stationary here, and then it starts to go retrograde. And so wherever you have, between 11 and 26, is it 26? Wherever you have in your chart between 11 and 26 degrees of Libra, that area of your chart is going to be activated. That house is going to be activated. If you have planets in the cardinal signs in those places, your planets will be activated. So, and even in the other signs as well, but the cardinal signs will be the most active of the activated signs because it would be either a conjunction, an opposition, or a square to these points in Libra. So October is going to be a very interesting month, which of course I'm going to do a thing on October, and we're going to really talk about it. But we're pretty much ending the month with the Mercury retrograde, and it's retrograde till at least the third week, right, of October. So, and then it has to come out of its shadow. So I believe it's not even out of its shadow till November. So this is going to be a time when communication is vital, but we have to double check about what's coming into our ears and what's going out of our mouth. So, all right. So Tuesday, the 28th, excuse me, the moon in Cancer makes a last quarter square to the sun in Libra. This is that crisis and consciousness square of the lunation cycle that began with that new moon in Virgo. So This is a time of reorientation. This is a natural time of rebellion and letting go of structures, really, that no longer serve within the cycle of the sun and the moon. Wednesday, the 29th, we have Venus making a waning trine to Neptune. This is the trine of social rewards. This is that Sagittarius side trine. And these are about seeds planted on March 13th, 2021 at 21 degrees of Pisces. And the interesting thing about Venus and Neptune is that Neptune is actually the higher octave of Venus. And so this gives us access to love. It gives us access to compassion. It gives us access to healing. This is highly creative, very, very soulful combination for Venus. And quite honestly, we really need this energy, I think. And then on the same day, we have the sun making the same kind of trine, a waning trine to Saturn. Another social rewards, but these seeds were planted on January 23rd of 2021 at 5 degrees of Aquarius. Now, the interesting thing about the relationship between the sun and Saturn is that the sun is at the center of our solar system. So it is the integrative principle. And Saturn is the limitation. It is the limit of our third dimensional reality. Beyond Saturn, we're dealing with the transpersonal planets, those planets that deal with our collective evolution. But Saturn into the sun is very much how we live our lives and live our lives within a society. So this is another cycle of social rewards. So if you have done your due diligence, if you have endeavored to do your Saturn, as Anne Orderly says, this should be a time where you do get rewarded for that hard work. So that's Wednesday. Here's the Venus-Jupiter conjunction, the original one at 13 degrees of Aquarius. This is for Washington, D.C., so it did occur in the 10th house. The 10th house is the house of the executive branch. And of course, Venus and Jupiter is, kind of wanting to help in Aquarius, of course, wanting to help the collective. And now we have this trine. We might actually pass something that will help the collective. Wouldn't that be lovely? And, where are we? Last quarter square. Did I say trine? I meant last quarter square. Oh, goodness gracious. What is this? Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, I have to go back. So I put these in the wrong order. Thursday the 30th. So this is the last day of September. We have Venus doing a last quarter square to Jupiter. Venus and Jupiter are considered the benefics. Venus, the lesser benefic, Jupiter, the greater benefic. It's occurring at 23 Scorpio Aquarius. Scorpio Aquarius as a combination is fair distribution of resources, of shared resources. So this deals with things like taxes and programs to help raise all boats and social programs and things like that. So we may actually see some things come to fruition with this. So let's just go over the Sabian symbol for these 2 degrees. The first degree, Venus at 22 of Scorpio. And these symbols are very interesting to me, so I'm gonna share them with you. A rabbit metamorphs into a nature spirit, the raising of animal drives to higher levels. It says whether it is a sexual desire for progeny or aggressiveness, the instinctual urge can be raised to a new level. The course can become subtle through the process of transubstantiation. So this is a symbol that is pointing out our ability to take our baser instincts and raise them up to a higher vibration, okay? Which is kind of what we've been talking about. And then Sabian symbol for Jupiter at 23 degrees of Aquarius. A big bear sits down and waves its paws. The self-discipline which results from an intelligent development of individual faculties, under proper training. Character and warm understanding of what is involved in the process of growth and overcoming of emotional heaviness can be taught. We can learn to discipline our natural impulses and use them for more than personal purpose. This is discipleship in its true sense of the term. So this is even asking us to take our bear nature, right? Our animal nature and train it so that it can serve the process of growth. So here's another symbol of this. And I'm just going to go back to the chart because I should have done the first thing first. So here's the chart. Here's the initial conjunction in that 10th house. Here's the last. Let's see. Here's where'd you go, Venus? Say hi. Here's Venus in Scorpio. We the bills that they're trying to pass in Congress. Jupiter in the branch. I got what I'm sorry. Ooh, that was weird. I got dropped in the middle, so let me just finish my thought, and then we can move on to doing a quick card read. Um, so here and I'm not even going to bother going into the other one. So here we have the initial conjunction occurring in the 10th house. 10th house is politically, when you're looking at a mundane chart, the 9th house is the judiciary, the 10th house is the executive branch, and the 11th house is the legislative branch. So when we come over here and we look at Jupiter, we'll see that Jupiter in Aquarius is in the house of the legislative branch, while Venus in Scorpio is in the house of our shared resources. So this looks like we might come to some sort of decision, or something comes down when it comes to the bills that are being attempted to be passed in Congress. So that's what I want to say about the rest of the week. Again, we do have that Mercury retrograde starting, and we can already feel it because Mercury has pretty much been sitting at like 25, 26 degrees of Libra for a while now, which is not unusual, because when a planet stations or starts, is planning to go retrograde or direct, it slows down quite a bit and things don't move very quickly. All right, so let's do a quick card read. I am going to use my Witch's Tarot. This is the Witch's Tarot by, oh my God, I'm trying to think of her first name. Her last name is Cannon. But I don't think you can get these cards anymore. I think these are out of print. It is actually pouring here right now. Probably one of the reasons why I got dropped because of the rain. It was such a beautiful day today. And I left the windows of the car open, and I was like, oh, it's such a beautiful day. I don't have to worry about that. And then my husband's like, hey, I think it's raining. I was like, ah, I closed the windows of the car. Luckily I did. It was just drizzling when I did that. Now it's pouring like crazy, of course, because you know that's what we do these days. There's no such thing as a regular, oops, I have cards jumping all out at me. There's no such thing as a regular rain. It has to be phenomenal rain. All right, now it's calming down a bit. That nice, soft, feminine rain. All right. So I'm just going to pick a couple of cards on this week ahead. What do we need to be aware of? And then you can get on with your day. And so can I. Because I was going to do yard work, but it's raining now, so can't do that. All right. Okay, so we're on, what card is this? This is the Nine of Swords in this deck, which is different than the other decks of the Nine of Swords, but this is, we are ready for a fight. We have our swords, but if you can see these two people are standing side by side, remember what I said about seeing both sides of a thing and then walking through the middle and ascending? So we're at this sort of stalemate energy, but this is very much a Libra energy, right? It's balanced. We have the swords here. So this is very, very Libra. Let's see what's crossing that. We have the Seven of Cups. You know, the Seven of Cups is our illusions, our illusions. So I think we have to be very careful about the reasons that we might want to take up the sword against somebody else, because we're not seeing things very clearly. However, illumination is coming. This is revelation. So this is at the root. So there will be some revelations coming our way. Let's see what the past says. Past, we have the World card, endings and beginnings. So we have just ended a period of time, and we'll be starting a new cycle. Of course, we just ended the summer here, and now we're into fall. And for those of you in the southern hemisphere, you just ended winter and now you're into spring. So there is a change of season. In the sky, we have the Queen of Swords. The Queen of Swords is somebody who meets justly, gives out, right, justice fairly. In this deck, these cards, you can read them a little differently, but how I like to see this card in this situation is justice is on the road. You see, she has made a decision as to what road she's moving down, and she's stepping forward. So justice is on its way, folks. Justice is on its way. And the outcome, we have the Temperance card, on Temperance card, which is about healing and balance and spiritual initiation. So we are at a precipice. And what I would say is, don't make any decisions about how you're going to approach the quote unquote enemy or the other or whatever, you know, however you want to do it. I mean, it's interesting because in astrology, the Libra house is the house of partnerships, but it's also the house of open enemies. But the nice thing about an open enemy is they're right in front of you, so you can see. I feel like these cards are saying we are on the brink and we just have to wait it out a little bit longer, because I think what we're going to see is things are going to be revealed to us, and that process is going to be very healing for us. So have patience this week. I think that's the main thing. Justice is coming. Yes, things are very tense, but know that people's perspectives are somewhat skewed, especially emotionally. People are very emotionally fraught right now. And so we need to give ourselves and others the latitude so that they can feel their feelings. And, but of course, we also have to be aware that people who don't have the ability to hold back are feeling their feelings as well. So at the beginning of this year, I had a mantra: be aware and take care. And I think that mantra still counts. All right, guys, have yourself a great week. Like and subscribe. Much love to you all. Namaste.